70-some years ago, and to get into a glimpse in the lives of ordinary people. And I wanted to just share this with you. This is badass. This is a student-initiated project at UCI. It stands for the Beginnings of Activism for the Department of Asian American Studies. I think we're going to get that name in there somehow. But our students were curious about how did our department, how was it created? And it was created through activism. Asian American students constituted over 40% of the student body at UCI in the early 90s, but they could only access 2 classes that were taught by temporary faculty about their own experiences. And so they protested. They took over the administration hall. They went on a hunger strike to demand the ability to learn about their own histories. And a lot of that work was done through archival research, looking at student publications that came out in the 90s, but also doing oral histories. And many of those people are now in the community. They're still continuing to advocate for the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander communities. So I'm going to talk much more briefly about this third conversation because I think you're going to be much more experts at this than I am. But I think the third conversation that we have with the census is a conversation that we have with members of our community. In my research, I tend to focus on lives of individual people. So either people like Margaret Chung, who's the first Chinese American female doctor, or right now I'm Patsy Takamoto Mink. She was a Japanese American, 3rd generation from Hawaii, and became the first woman of color to become a congresswoman. However, the census gives us a tool to understand the collective lives of our community. Given the prevalence of the mono-minority representation, the census gives us the tools to understand the diversity and disparities within our communities. It's not the only way for us to have the conversation, but the census is powerful and authorized. It is a government-certified portrait of Asian American Pacific Islander communities. And the statistics that are generated are subsequently decided to educate one another, develop programs, and demand resources. The message was clearly brought home to me as I engaged in conversations among community-based organizations and leaders. And here's an example of an alternative way of coming to understanding about the needs of our communities. This is a report that Professor Linda Vo collaborated with ihatetrump and Asian American Advancing Justice. So thank you again for the opportunity to talk to you today. I just wanted to feature some of the artwork that one of our Asian American Studies master's students is doing in collaboration with Kappa. She developed these informational images to try to encourage involvement with the census. I just want to end with, we have much work to do, but I truly believe that our efforts to achieve an accurate and complete count really matters. It matters that we're speaking back to the US government, that we're looking for opportunities to capture the lives of people who tend to be undercounted and overlooked, and that we have the opportunity to document and advocate for our communities. The census could be a top-down, one-sided conversation. Instead, we are asserting that we matter and that we want a voice in shaping our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you for your information, history, and sharing your experience with the community here. At this time, I'd like to ask all attendees to please take a moment and silence your cell phone devices. And also, I wanted to let you know that we will have a Census Bureau employee and photographer standing in the back of the room. His name is Charles Hahn. Please don't mind him as he roams throughout the ballroom, breakout sessions, during lunch, and break time. Feel free to pose with your colleagues or feel free to continue as you are. I'd like to also let you know that we encourage this community that's gathered today to get to know each other, catch up with old friends, meet new friends, so that we can collaboratively work together for Census 2020, and also keep in touch and build up the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander community beyond the Census 2020. I'd like to introduce you to our next keynote speaker. Bennett Misalucha is the chair of the Filipino Complete Count Committee in Oahu, Hawaii. She is a community leader and president of the Congress of Visayan Organizations, one of the largest Filipino community groups in An immigrant from the Philippines, she has called Hawaii for a home for almost 40 years. Please meet your next keynote speaker joining us from Oahu, Hawaii, Ms. Bennett Misalucha.
Aloha.
Aloha!
Perfect. 15 men, 15 Filipinos. That was a number of people who landed on the shores of Hawaii on December 20th, 1906. They left all that is near and dear to their hearts. They left families, loved ones, their beloved province of Ilocos, and everything familiar. They even endured 1 month of sea travel, all in pursuit of a better life they envisioned for themselves and their families. Like many of us, they came to fulfill their great American dream. These laborers were called cicadas. They were recruited as part of the labor force for Hawaii sugarcane industry, or plantations, and from 1906 to 1946, there were 3 immigration waves. From those humble beginnings came the Filipino diaspora that came to California and other parts of the country. But Hawaii was where the story started. And it all began with 15 men. More than 100 years later, here is where we are, based on our 2010 statistics. Filipinos now dominate as the second largest racial group in Hawaii, second only to the Caucasians, and compose 25% of Hawaii's population at almost 350,000. We have the largest concentration of Filipinos in the entire United States on the island of Kauai, where 1 of 3 residents is of Filipino ancestry. Sadly, based on previous census records, our Filipino community is one of the most challenging to count. In fact, here are 3 examples of predominantly Filipino areas on the island of Oahu. Kalihi. I'm not sure if you've been to Hawaii, but Kalihi is predominantly Filipino, had a low response rate of 33.3%, according to the Response Outreach Area Mapper of the U.S. Census Bureau. Waipahu, on the west side of Oahu, had a 30.7% rate, and sadly, in Ewa, had one of the lowest at 26%. In 2010, the state of Hawaii had a self-response rate of 68%, which is lower than the average across the country of 74%. So obviously, the story behind the statistics is most important to understand. Why are people not wanting to self-report? This situation is, of course, not unique to my community. I'm sure you all understand the trials and tribulations that we face. I raise them here because I would like to link the challenges to the proposed solutions. So here are some of the challenges that we face. I won't spend a lot of time talking about them because I think they're self-explanatory and I'm sure you feel the pain. First, language. That is a barrier. Also, our people lead busy lives in order to meet their obligations, particularly with the high cost of living in Hawaii. They have to have 2 or 3 jobs, and census is not necessarily a priority. They don't trust government and what government will do with the information. Apathy. They're closer to the mother country than to the U.S. Particularly for first-generation immigrants, they are in a bubble. And last but not least, there's a language gap on how to complete the census forms. Obviously, there are more challenges, but allow me to just concentrate and focus on the 5 that I mentioned. mentioned here. So here are some of the possible solutions. I'm going to go into each one very briefly. First, you need to establish a group identity. So that's what we did. We created the Filipino Complete Count Committee. This is important. We reached out extensively. We had more than 250 Filipino organizations in Hawaii, and we invited all of them to be part of this. The key is to acknowledge them as leaders, and we have them come as partners on equal footing all together. We even created a logo. So here's our logo, and we're printing t-shirts. Go ahead, Michelle. Here's our logo. But as you can tell, it doesn't have Filipino on it, but if you're Filipino, you can see the rays of the sun that's very reminiscent of the Philippine flag. We included in the group the stalwarts, those who have been involved as far back as the 1990 census, as well as the youth and the second generation Filipinos, like the Filipino Junior Chamber of Commerce. The second strategy, start where they are. So did you know that that Filipino communities are one of the most avid users of Facebook? So we created our own FB page. I see some smiles in the audience acknowledging that, right? Okay. So we do have our own Facebook page. And in addition to that, we are in the process of planning census fairs in the areas that I mentioned earlier with the lowest self-response rates. So we have a Waipahu Census Fair happening March 14. Eva Beach will have its own on March 21st, and Kalihi will have its fair on March 28th. In addition, on May 2nd, the biggest celebration is Filipino Fiesta, which draws about 10,000 to 15,000 people. We will have our presence there as well. At these census fairs, we will have food, entertainment, relevant booths, games, prizes. More importantly, we have census enumerators on site with their devices who can take the information. Now, in addition to that, I don't know if you're familiar with this, this is called sign waving, only in Hawaii. So during political season, we have politicians who do sign waving, that's Senator Inoy there. Whether you're a very big, politician to the region, politician in your region, you do sign waving. It's been duplicated and used for classes as well. So on March 30th, we are organizing, a few days before the census day, which is April 1st, we are organizing a massive sign waving from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. in the same areas that I spoke about, Waipahu, Kalihi, Eva Beach. And we will be holding a sign waving to call attention to the census. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, 50 to 100 sign wavers in every location, Kalihi, Waipahu, and Eva Beach, dressed in, by now, our iconic t-shirts, simultaneously holding signs about the census.
Bravo!
Unforgettable sight it will be, right? Thank you. In short, we will be a compelling presence in the communities where Filipinos work, eat, and play during the census period. The third strategy, use trusted institutions. I mentioned about trust. If my community does not necessarily trust government, who would they trust? And in our situation, the answer is, first one is church. The Catholic Church particularly, because 90% of Filipinos are Roman Catholic and they're devout. So we are reaching out to the Catholic parishes to engage them in a conversation. In addition, we're also partnering with other religious groups like Iglesia Ni Cristo and partnering with them as well. In addition to that, of course, their family, trusted friends, their civic organizations. The outreach is also happening. In fact, we even reach out to the Philippine consulate, and they are our partners. We're working in tandem with them during their outreach activities. Last but not least, ethnic media, which they do trust. We're utilizing free airtime from ethnic media outlets, as well as partnering with organizations like Ethnic Education Hawaii to air public service announcements. By the way, part of building trust and communicating effectively is to make sure that they communicate in their own language. So Hawaii is a melting pot, so we have a very diverse population. So the state of Hawaii has translated the census materials into 13 languages. And I left copies of the Filipino translated materials on that table right there, so feel free to help yourselves. We do have an Ilocano version, but unfortunately we ran out because a lot of our Filipino population in Hawaii are of Ilocano extraction. So the fourth strategy is leveraging political connections. And I know this is sensitive and has to be handled sensitively. So to the extent that you can elicit support from your elected officials and can work with them to avail of resources and connections, please do so. We have two young Filipino legislators, and they're featured here, who have volunteered their resources from their offices to do mass mailing for our census event, so it does not come out of anybody else's pocket, and they're doing it on their own time and merit. And they have galvanized their legislative colleagues to make available pre-made materials, and that's the sample there. So any legislator can take this advantage of this, and this is ready to be dropped in their respective communities. The fifth, final strategy is appealing to the heart. You can have the most articulate, the most complex, most elaborate words, but at the end of the day, sometimes simplicity is beauty, right? Appeal to the heart. This is what moves people to action. It can be a universal theme, like love, family, or addressing needs. Think this one through, ladies and gentlemen. This is important. Now, whether or not these strategies end as successful remains to be seen. We intend to monitor the progress throughout the census period, and we are mapping out a way or a plan to respond proactively if the numbers are not moving. I have been given 10 minutes to share, so I obviously cannot go too much into details about each of the strategies. However, feel free to chat. And so this is my contact information. I'd be happy to share with you some of our best practices. Now, I have to confess, I have been doing some binge watching over an NBC show called This Is Us. So when asked what the title of my presentation was, I went to the show for inspiration. And then I looked at the title again, and I realized, wow, if you put a period after the U and a period after the S, guess what? It's even more appropriate, right? This is us. So, allow me to end by saying that for those of you who are doing census full-time, we are beyond grateful for the incredible work you're doing. Let's give it up, ladies and gentlemen, for the full-time census.
Bravo.
And thank you, whoever you are, for putting the summit together. For those of you who are volunteers, please know that you are the unheralded heroes who are making a difference in your communities. All of us in our tight Native Asian, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander family are mindful that we are building a legacy here for us and the generation after us. When things go rough and the desired outcomes seem to be out of reach, do take a moment to take a pulse check. Why are we doing this? In closing, there is a beloved Filipino saying called, and I'm going to say it in Filipino and translate it, ang sakit ng kalingkingan ay mararamdaman ng buong katawan. Meaning, the pain of the little finger can be felt by the entire body. Think about that for a moment. We are all in this together. You are the voice of your community. We need to feel each other's pain. We need to share each other's burdens. That is the only way that the promise of America, the America we all dreamed about, the America, the promise that 15 Filipinos nurtured, that is the only way the promise of America will be fulfilled. At the end of the day, this is more than just a census. It is an opportunity to demonstrate the strength of our Asian, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities. Maraming salamat po. Mahalo. Daghang salamat, which is in Visayan. Thank you very much.
Bravo.